Well, hello, everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. Another day of a lifetime of Hallmark. I am Les Kirkendall Barrett. Hello, Jason Bowers.
Hello, Les Kirkendall Barrett.
And hello, Kurt Fitzpatrick.
Hello, Les Kirkendall Barrett, and hello, Jason Bowers.
We take movies from both Lifetime and the Hallmark Channel and try to make sense of them.
We're not very successful, though, because they don't often make sense, but they are fun to watch.
And we go down all kinds of rabbit holes. We talk about Angelian quite a bit. We talk about the show Enos.
June Squibb. We are Team June Squibb all the way.
And we have Black China news every single episode.
So with that in mind, why don't you listen to a lifetime of Hallmark? You can listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts. This is a Kirkendall Barrett presentation.
Well, hello everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. It is time for another episode of the Reality Reading Rainbow, where I talk about books written by reality stars. I also have interviews. We will be starting the show in 1 second. Just a few announcements. First of all, I now have a Facebook page, the Reality Reading Rainbow. We have our own group Facebook page. So why don't you join it? Go to Facebook, hit the Reality Reading Rainbow, and become a part of a group where we talk about the books, we have discussions, we have laughs, and we'd love to have you. Also, the Reality Reading Rainbow now has a Patreon. You know, these books do cost money, and so your generous donations that's what actually finances the purchase of the books that I read for the podcast. We have many different tiers. Give whatever you can afford. It's monthly. You can do as low as $3. But I know that times are tough. So if you have the money, great. If you don't, I would just rather you listen because your presence is my present. All right. On with the show after these messages. Hello, this is Les Kirkendall Barrett, and if you like soap operas, I have the podcast for you. Listen to my podcast, Soap Opera Love in the Afternoon, where I talk about both soaps in the United States and across the pond in the United Kingdom. You know, I talk about all the soaps, Days of Our Lives, Young and the Restless, Coronation Street, Emmerdale, all of it. So, give my podcast, Soap Opera Love in the Afternoon, a listen wherever you find podcasts.
Well, hello, everybody. It is your favorite day of the week. It is time for another episode of the Reality Reading Rainbow, where I talk about books by your favorite reality stars and try to make sense of them. I also, from time to time, do interviews. I am your host, Les Kirkendall Barrett, and I have a guest today, and I'm very excited to talk to him. Like I've mentioned on the podcast before, I want to make podcast friends because, you know, this is a solo effort and I'm still fairly new at this. So I am looking to make podcast friends, and I have made a new podcast friend. So our guest today is David Yontef from the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast. Welcome.
First of all, thank you for having me. How are you today? Podcast friends are always good.
Yes. Hey, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So my podcast, and then I have a question for you about this reading of the books.
Sure.
So my podcast is kind of the opposite of yours, where you say you read books and every now and then you do an interview. I read no books, and I have an interview person every single day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We are a 5-day-a-week interview show. And so like when I go on other podcasts like this, I'll talk all about myself. On my show, it is really me being a journalist and interviewing you. All reality. It's heavy Bravo, it's heavy Housewives, but it will never be 100%. At one point it was heading in that direction, and I'm like, okay, people, back the bus up. This isn't a good business model. I don't want all my eggs in the Bravo basket. What about The Bachelor? 5 million people watch that. What about RuPaul's Drag Race? And it's not just reality. Oh, yeah.
We're going to have fun.
Oh,
we're
honey,
going to have fun. Okay. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time. No, but we also have, like, last week we had Janice Dickinson. We had Isaac Mizrahi. So it's not just reality. It's mostly reality, but it's like pop culture phenomenons. You know, I mean, who doesn't want to talk to Janice Dickinson?
Right.
Although she is reality, I guess, because she was on America's Next Top Model. Listen, you'll never see a political figure. You'll never see a sports figure. But anything like pop culture, 90210 kids, like that type of stuff, I interview them. And, you know, I am nice in the beginning and I'm nice at the end. But in the middle, honey, daddy wants a little. And we need questions answered. So I'm not afraid to go there. Like, you know, I will ask you the questions that some people don't want to ask you. I mean, listen, I have to. My listeners have now like come to expect it. And if I do a show where I only ask certain questions, they're like, you weren't harsh enough. I'm like, oh, everyone has an opinion. Right. But so it's interviews. It's interviews with all. I mean, name a reality star. Chances are we've interviewed them.
Wow, that's great. And like, and it's funny that you mentioned that you started out Bravo heavy, because I did too. You know, I started out actually, so the whole way that this podcast came about is I'm on one of the many Bravo fan discussion groups. And so I found Denise Richards' book, and I found it for like $1 in like a bargain bin somewhere. And so I started reading the book and posting about it. And people are like, oh my gosh, this should be a podcast. And so that's how I ended up turning this into a podcast. Wow. And so basically, but it started out Bravo heavy, but then I realized as well that there are a lot of other reality stars and reality people who have written books.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like you mentioned, RuPaul. Yeah, RuPaul has quite a few. And so for me, it's interesting to read the book and then see if the person, how they presented themselves in the book is how they truly present themselves. And
that makes sense. That makes logical sense. And you just read the books. And I mean, listen, I've read a lot of reality books too. I mean, I you know, if someone has like a bio, I'll get it. Like I've read Erica Jane's book. I read like lots of Teresa's books.
Right.
I mean, and then I've even read like Lisa Rinna has a novel. I mean, I don't think she really wrote it herself, but you know, it's like bubble gum. This is way back in the day. I think it's called Starlight, you know, about like a girl who comes to LA and wants to be an actress. So I even like reading like those type of books. So, I mean, I used to read in my former life, and now I'm just too busy interviewing people.
Right. Now question. So what inspired you to get your podcast started?
Well, so listen, I have a whole different background. I practiced corporate tax law. That's a true story. And then I stopped that. And then I went into recruiting. I ran like hiring and HR at like various companies. I used to run hiring for Martha Stewart. And I worked at all. So eventually I worked at all these companies that kept merging. And then like when my last company went under, I'm just like, I need a minute to think about what I'm going to do with my life. And I was hanging out with all these reality stars. You know, I mean, like I live in New York City. I don't know where you live.
I'm in LA.
So it's same thing. Like it's not, you know, I mean, same thing if you lived in Dallas. Like I always say this all the time. If I lived in Dallas, I would be real. I mean, I'm friends with the housewives now from Dallas, but you know, like it helps when you're in like a place where there's reality TV being filmed.
Right.
And, you know, this is not, you know, J-Lo. It's not Miley Cyrus. It's not like these people are inaccessible. There's a way to run into these people, to be where they are. This is the modern age of Instagram. So I started putting myself into situations where I was with all these people. And, you know, listen, it's like anything organic. If I speak to you on here for a 10th time, we're going to have a secret language because, well, I've been on here 10 times. It's just, I started becoming friendly with a lot of these reality stars, and beginning in the middle, I was like, how is this a business? Like, I need to turn this into a business because like things are happening. Like, I just became known as like a Bravo person. And then it just kind of came to me that, you know, when I would hang out with these people, and it's not when they're filming, because when they're filming, you actually can't hang out with them. Then you like go to an event like Melissa Gorga's fashion show, and okay, they're like filming it, but they're all over there with surrounded by 13 cameras. You can't just walk up to Teresa and say, yo, I got something to say. You'll be thrown out. So it's when they're not filming that you're hanging out with these people and you're like, is anyone like watching all this crap that I'm watching? Like, there's crazy shit going down now, and this is not on TV, and someone probably would be interested in these stories. So that's how I started my podcast. It was to talk about, you know, listen, if anything is really confidential, someone's like, don't you repeat this? Of course, I'm not going to talk about it, but there's enough fodder there that like these stories someone's interested in. And I wasn't sure. And then I started my podcast with stories, and then it just kind of became a thing. And then COVID happened, and then 2 days became 3 days, became 4 days, became 5 days. And because I know a lot of these people, I started interviewing them, and then people would tell other people, oh, you should go on his show. And then I'm like, there ain't no more time for stories. So all the stories have moved to my Patreon account. Now I'm just like, listen, if you want to hear about me, you know, sleeping over a housewife's house or what happened, you got to pony up because mama needs $1 here. So you can go onto Patreon and pay for my inside gossip about what it's like to hang out with these people. And meanwhile, I'm giving you 5 free shows a week. So it's not like I'm being stingy. And I just think people love the interviews. You know, it just kind of became that show. So it just kind of took off. I mean, I have to say I don't credit COVID with my podcast. It was successful before, but getting it to where it is today and making it like a big thing with all these names on it, like COVID helped my show. Like I will say it just did. It just helped it.
And I have to agree with you on that, because this whole podcast was started partly because of COVID, and I needed something to do, you know? And speaking of COVID, I listened to your interview with Deandra Simmons, which I enjoyed, by the way, but she was talking about her battle with COVID, and you mentioned something, you dealt with COVID yourself?
Yes, I had COVID, and it was in October. So, you know, like when you look on TV and you see these parties and there's like 100 people at one of these events, and they're like, the police are breaking it up, and they're like, look, this is how you get COVID. Well, apparently up until October, it's not that I didn't believe that. I mean, I was staying in, I was following the COVID rules, but there was something in October. It wasn't like hundreds of people, but it was a good amount of people. And I said to myself, like, I probably shouldn't, you know, like the world started opening around September.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, and before it shut down again. And so it was one of these things. It was an event. It was Housewives related. Let's not get into what it was. And I just said, like, you know, I probably shouldn't go to this. And like one after another, we all said that. We all went. And then the next morning I woke up and I got a call from someone, and they were like, you know, so-and-so who was there last night just found out she has COVID. And as soon as it literally was the next morning, I think she had symptoms, but I'm like, I don't know why you fucking went to this thing. But well, then when I was told that like 9 a.m. the next morning, so-and-so has COVID who was there, I was like, oh no, I definitely have it. Like my throat has been hurting since I woke up. So I went, they were like, honey, calm down. You can't be sure. I'm like, no, you don't understand. A, I was at an event. B, I was just told the next day someone has it. C, I have a sore throat. This is not like in my head. It's 100% like I just know my body. So I had it in October, and I was like, well, this is no wonder why I have it. You know, like I got too calm. Like I was, you know, we were following the rules in the beginning, and then when the world's open in that like July, August period, that's when I was like, okay, well, like I can do a little something. And I was like, I should have stuck to my gun. So luckily I didn't have it bad. I was really exhausted. And then, but other than that, I didn't have any real symptoms.
And, you know, I mean, and I'm at the point now where COVID fatigue is a thing. The pandemic fatigue, it's a thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I get like, hey, I shouldn't go to this, but I haven't been around people in umpteen months. I totally get it. I think
people are over it now. Like I think it's a thing,
Yeah. I'm glad that you're pretty much on the mend now, though. Like,
yeah.
correct?
And I also I have a weird, to your point about COVID fatigue, I personally have a weird, I think I'm in the minority about how I live my life. Like I really live my life. Business wise, if you're going to, cause I'm a lawyer, let's not forget, if you're going to draw a line down the middle from a business point of view and you're going to make me your target, my business is now a podcast. It's been other things. So if you're going to make me your target in business, honey, watch the fuck out because I will destroy you. I will draw that line. You're going to come after me business wise. It is on. You have snapped me. I see red, and my 24 hours every day is now directed towards you. Don't you dare come after me. Short of that, from a business point of view, I'm so laid back. If you want to live your life one way, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in mass shaming. I don't believe in, it's not even COVID related. I just don't believe in, how did the world get here where everyone's supposed to have the same opinion on everything? I really worry about David Yontef from Behind the Velvet Rope podcast.
Right.
I may not agree with anything you're doing. I'm not saying go out and spread COVID. I'm just saying I don't take that angst on of, you posted a picture without a mask, you have this political view. I just feel like I need to fight my own fights. There's only so many hours in the day. So I don't get really angry about things all day. But this COVID fatigue is true. And then there's also a lot of people that you get shamed for just crossing the street. And you're like, you live your life, I live my life. Like you don't, just because I'm in one picture over here without a mask, I'm at a table with someone I know who's quarantining down the street. Like it's just strange to me.
I'm so glad you said that because I've had a couple of instances now. For example, last week I got the vaccine, or I got my first shot for the vaccine. You wouldn't believe how many people attempted to vaccine shame me. Now, and it's like, okay, you don't know what goes on in my life. I actually was approved to get the vaccine, and they don't need to know how I was, but I was and had a letter to back it up, but it's like people are quick to shame, Another time I went out to lunch a couple of weeks ago with a couple of buddies of mine, and I'm in California where the rule is you've got to social distance, but since the weather is nicer, all the restaurants are outside.
Right.
And so someone tried to go in on me, and it's like, this is none of your business. You don't know the story behind it. It's easy to go in on someone, but you don't have the facts to back it up, But I agree with you. People are quick to jump.
What's the point of that? You're not going to change the way I live my life. And I'm not talking about COVID. I'm just saying in general. Right. And I'm not going to change the way you live your life. So it's like you do you and I do me. You could be frustrated with me and I could be frustrated with you and we can completely disagree. But I don't know why. Where did we as a society get to the point where you're basically saying you only want to surround yourself by people that think exactly like you? That is so boring to me. I don't get it, but that's where we're at. And I personally think it's we're borderline on a lack of free speech, that you can no longer speak your mind. Right. It's just strange to me.
So I have an idea. Yes. Why don't we take what we're talking about and move this over to talking about our various reality shows?
Let's do it.
I was prepared to only speak to you about Bravo, but now that you basically, other than The Bachelor, it sounds like we pretty much watch all of the same shows because RuPaul's Drag Race. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So, for example, I don't know if you've read this, but RuPaul's Drag Race, for example, I've read recently that there was a big, huge problem with the queens getting shamed.
How so? Because I feel like the queens are always getting shamed.
Well, It's getting to the level though where like a couple of them have had to leave social media, getting death threats. If one of the queens gets to Shantae and stay, the public goes after them.
Right. Like I saw all this stuff with like Candy Muse. I don't know if you're up on it, who was able to stay after being told to sashay away.
Yeah.
Like I haven't finished this last episode, but
Okay.
right. I think Candy had to leave or got a lot of hate for that. I think.
Well, it was and there's nothing I love more than a Shantae you both say.
Yeah.
You know? But at the end of the day, it's like it's a show. It's a show.
Yes. I say this all the time. And it really, like, people say, like, you know, especially in Bravo, like, are you team Candace? Are you team Monique? Are you team LVP? Are you team Kyle? I say it all the time. I am team David Yontef and Behind the Velvet Rope. I want people to come on my podcast. It's like because I had Candace Dillard on. I don't know if you watched Potomac.
Yes, I do. Yes.
And we had and that's another thing. Whether I like you or not, my opinion is based on not just us on air, but before and after, you know? So like Candace on air, I was shocked about how open and wonderful she was. She's kept in touch. She's been wonderful afterwards. And I'm like, so to me, it's like, to your point, right. Like and then, you know, Candace on my show, I posted it and the comments are like, you know, someone needs to find that bitch and beat her down. You know, that bitch needs to be smacked in the face. I mean, I'm like, okay, so basically, I guess it's okay. It's such a double standard. I'm like, I guess it's okay for you to like, but the thing is like, I watched Potomac. I enjoyed it. I mean, do I have an opinion on what I saw between Candace and Monique? Do I have maybe a side? Maybe, but not really. Like, I love Candace as a human being because she came on my show. Right. Then everyone was up in arms. It's like Monique is not on my show, not because I'm team Candace. It's because Monique's team has never responded to me. If Monique wanted to come on 5 minutes after Candace, I would have gladly had Monique. And I've done that. I've had people on back to back. I just had like all the Salt Lake. I had like Meredith and Lisa, and I had Whitney. I mean, Whitney and Lisa can't stand each other. I like both of them. They were both on my show talking crap about each other. I'm like, I'm pretty careful not to comment on a lot of things. Like I'll let you go on your rant and I'll just say weird things like, you know, or that sounds like interesting. Like I purposely will make a quote so that this quote cannot be misconstrued that I'm agreeing with your hatred for Lisa, because I don't hate her. But so I agree with you. I don't understand how such hatred could be thrown towards people, queens, housewives, bachelors, that just because of what they do on a TV show. Case in point, my guest today is Blake Horstman. He's from a prior season of The Bachelorette. He was also on Bachelor in Paradise. He's just made all these headlines based on our interview today because he said on the interview that he was basically suicidal. Like, no joke. I mean, this is all in the past. Because of the hate that came his way. And he was calling producers like, please just edit me out. I can't take this anymore. You know, you're in a show. It goes on week after week after week. What causes someone to, I mean, you know, give that much hate to something they see on TV? That's like a 12-hour discussion. Like, what is it in you that you're so angry about because of what you saw? Like, I get it. If you think Candace was in Monique's face or whatever, I understand having a side. I don't understand being so bitter and death threats and wishing harm on someone because of a TV show.
Right. And I mean, as a journalist, you know, I don't consider myself a journalist, but as a journalist, isn't the main part of being a journalist is you are supposed to keep your opinion to yourself and do the interview and take your opinion out of it?
Yeah. I mean, some of my comments on Apple reviews, because we all have to love our Apple reviews, some of them will be like, you know, yeah, I say like, that makes sense, or I just had like awkward responses. And I mean, that's not the majority. The majority are good, but it's like, okay, first of all, I'm not explaining myself to you. And second of all, like, those awkward silences are purposeful. They're purposeful because it's my job not to have an opinion on this. I do as a human being, but it's my job not to relay that. And so I don't understand how people don't understand that. You know, it's not about me. It's about like, do you want all these people on my show? Do you want Countess Luann? Do you want LVP? People come on my show because I am very impartial. Having said that, after the reunion at Potomac, people, when Andy Cohen kind of took Monique's side, it seemed, people were like, oh my God, now we appreciate how impartial you are all the time. And I'm like, yeah, it's like my job is really just to get facts from these people and let everyone else decide. A lot of times people will say to me, like, I like Candace better now that I listen to your show. That's amazing to me. If my show and an interview can change the way you felt about someone, but that's not the goal. If you hated someone before and you listen to me interview them and now you hate them even more, it's kind of like I've done my job. Like, great. Okay. Whatever it is, you feel about this person the way you want to feel about them. I'm not trying to change minds. I'm not telling you to like all the people I have on. I don't even like all the people I have on. It's just my job to get the facts of what's going through someone's mind and all this stuff you don't see on TV. I want to get you tea that you do not have access to otherwise. And that's what my show has become. And I think that's what people love about it.
Well, and the thing is, the people that come on your show have to trust you. And I don't mean like they don't have to expect the hard questions, but now that I'm getting people to come on my show, I'm learning this. They've got to be able to maybe not expect you to be impartial, maybe not expect you to judge them, but at the same time, they've got to come on with the feeling that you're not going to roast them either and make them look bad. So I totally get what you're saying.
Right. Because I mean, I think if someone, when people talk about my show, I've seen this in print so many times, and I have come to agree with this. Like, people say that my interview style is just casual and relaxed. It's like talking to a friend. And I think that has become my style. And I think, I do have a style. It's like, I say this all the time, like, I'll ask you out on the date. I'll take you out. I'll pick you up. I'll hold the door for you. I'll drive you to the restaurant. I will order you drinks. You could have appetizers, dessert. The bill could be hundreds of dollars. I'll pay the bill. I'll be a total gentleman. At the end of the date, when I go to drop you off, daddy wants some. And that's kind of my interview style. So I think sometimes, which means I guess I'm good at my job, no ego, like, it's very relaxed by the time we get there when I start demanding things. And I think, even like there are certain, celebrities that come on my show, because I interview actors and actresses, and then you become friends with people. You say you want podcast friends, you become friends with the people you interview. They keep in touch, and like a couple of like real actors and actresses are like, you have such a style, it puts people at ease. And I think that's my thing. I think I'm able to go for the kill without berating someone. But yes, I think if you're going to sit there and berate someone, it's never happened to me, but I would just hang up. I would just be like, this interview is done. Good luck. And just, so I'm always afraid of that. Mind you, that could have its own viral moment, but I think if you're going to berate someone, they're going to hang up. And I think also, do you really want someone once? What if they're on the show for 7 years? Like, I want you every season, because next season, I don't really care about what you said on my show this season. It's going to be something new. So the goal is really, it's a fine line. I'm telling you, I've developed over a year the skills, like a little, because it's a fine line. You have to get the stuff for the audience. Like, you have to ask the questions, the hard questions. But you have to then just know when to back off of, like, this person will answer this and then never come on my show again. And that's going to be worse for everyone in the long run. So it's like this fine balance between like harsh and then like, we need to now change the subject.
Right. And now I do have some opinions.
Yeah, like, I have opinions. I just don't talk about them on my own show.
Right. Now, and this is a general, and I'm going to ask this, and you can answer it in a general way or specific. It's completely up to you. One of the issues that has been popping up this year is racism on reality shows, especially the racism that has been popping up on Bravo. Do you have an opinion on that?
Just because I mean, like now I feel like the bigger racial issues are on The Bachelor, but
Right. Oh, and go in, and let's talk about that. What?
so like
What do you mean?
Bravo. Well, the Bravo stuff, yeah. I mean, Stassi and Kristen are let go,
Mm-hmm.
and now Jax is gone, supposedly, allegedly for probably the same reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Although everyone puts out a statement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's almost like a larger issue of like cancel culture. Like, do we agree with cancel culture? I mean, I guess that's really the question, right? I mean, is that what you're asking?
Well,
Or are you asking about the behavior specifically of specific people?
well, we'll go into The Bachelor in a second, but like now, so when it comes to cancel culture and the word cancel culture, I have an issue with the actual word cancel culture because this is how I look at it. And I've broken it down for people before. Okay, so I am a person of color. I watch your show. I like your show. I like you as a person on that show. And my views bring your show advertising because I'm counted in your numbers, which gets more money for your show, which allows you to have a better show. So if I find out that you're racist or you said something racist or you tweeted something racist, I, as the person of color, have the option not to watch your show anymore, you know? Yeah. And so that's why if it's for something racist or something like that, I don't consider that cancel culture. That's called being held responsible for the words that you said. That's my opinion on it, you know. But how do now, you know, how do you feel about like, for example, Chris Harrison? I guess he's taken a little break. What are your feelings on that with The Bachelor?
Well, I mean, it means that whole thing. I mean, it seems like he's going to be back. I have to look at the latest. I mean, he did. The one thing, because I'm up on The Bachelor, because I just had a gazillion people on my show from The Bachelor. Mm-hmm. The one thing I'm not up on is I didn't see his GMA interview. So, like the last thing
I didn't either. So I yeah.
Because what happened is now I'm done interviewing. Like I just had Kendall Long and I had like Mike Johnson. So I've asked all these people that have come on my show, you know, and they've all slammed Chris. Like they didn't hedge. They were just like, this is not okay.
Right.
I mean, although it does seem like really there's not much long-term effect. I think Chris is going to come back. But that's not with me not watching the last interview. But I think I saw some headline or something like Chris says he will be back or something.
Right.
You know, like the thing is, to me, it's like whether I agree with cancel culture or not, it's just, it seems we're in this strange state with it, in that people are now being canceled because of things they've said. And then people are issuing apologies. And then they're either canceled for months or weeks or not at all. Or because everyone comes back, as far as like somehow, like Stassi now has a Patreon where if you want to pay $8.75, you could listen to Stassi's podcasts. That was just announced this past week. So like everyone, like look at Mel Gibson back in the day. He said that stuff about Jews. Like his career seems fine to me.
He won Oscars after that.
So right. So like to me, it's like I'm not even making a statement whether I agree or not. I'm just saying like it's a strange state in that like we are canceling people and they're being slapped on the wrist and punished.
Gotcha. I get it.
And then they're making a statement. So whether now the statement is real or it's put in, I don't need a statement, because whose statement's by Bravo, whose is by ABC, whose is your own, whatever. So you're making a statement. And then it's like, no, I think the real issue is what now? Like, do you feel bad? Do you understand why what you did is wrong, whether it's a tweet or like, do you really, I don't give a shit what you said on Tamron Hall or like, do you really, really, really get it? And are you learning and are you educating and are you changing as a person? So it's like, I feel like cancel culture in a way has lost its way. It's punishment, statement, and then eventually you'll be back. But like, what, you know what I mean? Like, if no one's learning and people are laughing, oh Jesus, I have to go do this now and make this fucking statement, and oh, I can't make money for 2 months. Like, is anyone like? I think we're not focusing.
I agree with you.
Like, we're not focusing. And even if someone's canceled forever, I mean, I'm not saying like it's not effective because everyone's getting their job back. It's just like, why aren't we focusing on like, has someone really learned and changed from this?
And I like that you mentioned that, because also, you know, I have my feelings about the word cancel culture, but at the same time, I know from experience, people can change and people can learn. And so if I agree with you, if the apology is a genuine apology, and it doesn't even have to be that elaborate, it just has to be genuine. If it's a genuine apology and the person's like, I fucked up, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to change, and you know what? And I will do better. That's all you honestly need to say. And if a person is willing to do better, I say, give them the benefit of the doubt. And if it happens again, then hey, fuck you, you get out. But at least give the person a chance to show us that they've changed.
Right.
Or
and
not.
Like, there's so many different degrees of what people do. You know what I mean? Like, so if it's more borderline, it's more like, do you understand why this may not have been okay? Why this offends people? Why this is considered racist? Like, I don't know. I think that's the place to start. Like, do you really understand? Like, do you really understand what was wrong about your particular actions? And then it's like, well, part of that's like helping you understand what you did is wrong. And just, I don't know. It's just, I think we're not focused on the work on the back end. I feel.
Right. Well, and speaking of,
because can I just say one more thing? Because
yeah.
Punishing someone, like, I don't know, it's like going to jail. Like, that's the way the system works. Like, so when you're in jail, are you just biding your time, or are you really getting in there and thinking you like murdered 7 people? So like, at what point does that, like, do you get it? Okay, maybe you're in jail for life, so we don't have any real, but like, it's just like, I don't know. It's like the punishment, people don't change because they're punished. You know what I mean? It's like your hand could be slapped. Like, I mean, at least when I've gotten in trouble for things, not anything like cancel culture, but just, you don't learn from being punished. You're just like, okay, well, that punishment was bad, but here I am. I'm back. Everyone comes back. And so then you will do it again if you don't really learn.
Right. Well, another thing too, and this is something that I found in my own experience, sometimes people really don't know. Like, and I'm not, and like saying the N-word or something like that, they know. Yeah, that's just, we all know that.
Right.
But when it comes to microaggressions, sometimes people honestly don't know.
I agree. I completely agree. That's one of my points, is like, there's such varying degrees. And so I think there are truly things like if you use a certain word, that's pretty obvious. But I do agree, there's a lot of these other situations where I don't think people really get it. And so like, that's part of it. It's not just the punishment. It's like, no, we have work to do. Like, you really need to like educate and sit and talk. And then, I mean, of course, then there's the actions, like, how are your actions different? But like, I just think that real understanding of what you did wrong, I'm not sure everyone gets it, that's being canceled, of their particular action, when it's more in this gray area.
And there's other times too where someone's done or said something and people are quick to jump on that person. And then as a person of color, I have to say, wait, no, back up. What they said was not offensive. Like, it wasn't offensive. Don't, like, back up. Like, I remember seeing, it was somebody described someone as a Black person and someone was going in and I'm like, no, that's not offensive to call a Black person a Black person. They're Black, you know? So I kind of, I get to where people are so jazzed and so ready to go in, they just go in. And, you know, it's kind of like the punishment should, yeah, you're right. The punishment should fit the crime. You know, if it's a microaggression, we can teach that. We can teach that and just say, hey, no, you did wrong. Now, you know, go, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, one of the things that I've noticed, for example, and one of the things that keeps on coming up, like with microaggressions, you of course you watch Dallas because I listened to your interview with Deandra.
Yes.
So I'm noticing, like, this season on, like, Tiffany Moon, who I like, I see her going through a lot of microaggressions this season.
You do?
Like yeah.
What?
Okay. Like, for example, now with the food, with like when she had them over for dim sum, and you know what? Okay, I wouldn't eat chicken feet either, but there's a way to say it. Right. Am I making sense? And it's not.
Tiffany is, you're just saying, like, in a way, is passive aggressive.
No, I'm not putting the blame on Tiffany. No, I'm not putting the blame on Tiffany. The others, she's having to go through a lot and apologize for a lot that the others don't have to apologize for.
Are you liking this season of Dallas, like, as a whole?
I am, but it's making me angry. It's making me angry with the way that they are treating Tiffany. And it's not, and I'm not giving Tiffany a pass because there's some of the things that she's done that are absolutely annoying. Like, her party was absolutely annoying. Her putting crickets on a pizza and not telling people, that was absolutely annoying.
Making Brandy throw up.
Right. Well, and then I'm wondering, though, was Brandy already just pregnant and didn't know yet?
That's true.
But I mean, I think that she's being held to a standard that the others aren't being held to. And especially with the dim sum, it wasn't the fact that they didn't like it, and it wasn't the fact that they didn't want to eat it. It was the fact that they described food from another culture as, this is gross, this is disgusting, that's what I don't agree with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm just waiting for something to happen on Dallas.
Uh-huh.
Just from a true, like, oh my God. And I'm not sure it's going to happen. I mean, no offense to my Dallas girls. I don't know.
Well, you know what I think? Because one of my favorite books that I've read was Mama D's book, and I love Mama D. They need more Mama D on the show.
I did not read her book.
Mama D. Well, okay, so let's put it this way. You know how, like, she says, I don't give a rip?
Yeah.
That's basically the attitude of the book, and I'm here for it.
Was this book before she was on the show? Like, was this book, or it's because she got a book?
No, this book is so old.
Oh, wow.
This book is so old that her husband was still alive. Wow. That's how old the book is. And so she had the book way before she was, because we forget. D. Yeah, we forget that her company was actually very successful. And this is a book that came with women who got the product from her company.
Yeah. I mean, good for her.
Yeah.
She's great. I've tried to get her on my show. It was going to happen at one point. But I think to every point you just had, I think it was more like, well, what is Mama D going to say on your show? And let's just hold off on that for a minute.
Right. Now, do you ever get blowback from anybody who you interview? Do you ever get blowback?
Define blowback, because the answer is
Well,
yes.
well,
But
like, okay,
there's so much type of blowback, and then but yes.
like
What?
someone who you're friendly with, and then you put your journalist hat on. You put your journalist hat on, and then you interview them with your journalist hat, and then they don't like what you've asked them or what you've said. Do you ever get blowback from that?
Yeah. Not well, not in a bad way. Well, not in a good way, but it's more like they'll call and just say, oh, you need to take one thing out. And then it's like, all right, well, slow down. Are you asking? Are you telling me? Like, in what context is this conversation happening? Because, calling me and demanding me to edit something out is not really the way to start the conversation. So I'm not like a pushover. It's not like, oh, sure. I have to say, no one has ever, with one exception, wanted something out that's the right thing. Like, most people will call and say, like, can you take that out? And you're just like, I mean, listen, I've been doing this so long that I know now, because my podcast is in like every freaking newspaper. Like, when Janice Dickinson's thing was like all over we were on Wendy Williams. When people want something taken out, I have to say, I don't understand how these people are on TV and in the media for like 10, 15 years. It's never the right thing. They'll be like, can you take that out? And you're like, absolutely. Is that what you want out? Because I will take that out. And I say to myself, like, yeah, these 5 things over here are going to go viral. You should have never said these 5 things. And this thing over here is just not even a problem. So there is pushback like that. It's not common, but I've gotten those calls. And then it's more like, they don't regret what they say. It's when it comes out, and they are in Vanity Fair and Us Weekly and People Magazine and Page Six and Perez Hilton and being talked about on Wendy. And it's like, bitch, I didn't fucking tell you to say this. I asked you a question and you could have answered it 700 different ways.
Right.
So this is not on me. I didn't tell you. And once something comes out, if it gets picked up, I can tell you 2 things. One, the quote is never wrong. There's never, people have called me before and said, can you tell me where I said that? I'm like, oh sure. Hold please.
Right.
At 49.02 minutes, this is what you said. And then they'll say, well, that headline is not. And I'm like, I agree with you. That's not really an appropriate headline. It does. I see your argument that this what you just said could be construed in 2 or 3 different ways. But why are you calling me? You need to call People Magazine or us. Like, I don't work for the actual publication. Like, I didn't come up with this damn headline. So it's a fine line. And that's why there's plenty of people that I'm not so friendly with. And I'm okay with that too, because being friendly with certain people, or just it actually makes my job harder. It's easier just to be like, you're on, but it's not a lot of pushback. It's more like people fight through you. That's more common.
Really?
Well,
really?
And I'm just giving you examples. These are not actual examples.
Okay.
Like a Whitney and a Lisa. I had Deandra on last week. I've also had Leanne on. So like, it's more like I have people on that just don't like each other. And I'm not saying those are the examples, but it's more like that type of thing happens. I've had housewives specifically say to me, cut all ties with that person. Don't have them on your show. You need to be loyal to me. And it's that's way more common. And it's like, So I don't understand. Like, is that a threat? Is that an ultimatum? You're never going to come back on my show now. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I take everything into account, but I'm not really one to be pushed like that. Like, again, I'm really nice. Like, I don't get upset about things in life ever, except for business, where I told you I'm going to come after you and destroy you.
Right.
But short of that, like, I don't get upset. You're late. You were like, you want me to meet you 2 hours from now. You're like, I don't get upset about any of this stuff in life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, whether we sit here, I don't care about any of that shit. So I am very laid back. It's just, I don't like ultimatums. And like, what's best for the show is for me to be able to book anyone I want. So, but I've had things like that, like cut ties with this one. You should be loyal to me. You just had me on last week. I just spoke to you yesterday. You couldn't tell me you were having this person on. Like, I don't know. Like, is it my duty to tell you that your arch enemy is coming on tomorrow? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a Gemini. I could really compartmentalize like personal is personal. And it works both ways.
Right.
When we're personal, I mean, I was in Vegas this past weekend with Lynn Curtin. Remember Lynn with her cuffs?
Oh, God. Yeah. I remember Lynn. Yeah.
So we were there, and I'm not gonna come back and be like, Lynn said this. Like, it's you really could trust me. So it's like, it works both ways. Like, what's happening on a personal level, is really like, I'm not going to reveal secrets. So isn't that like, to me, that's that. And when someone's on but don't ask me to now choose between you and not have someone on my show. So it's this fine line. That happens more. I'm in the middle of a lot of housewives all the time.
Now, has your podcast done the opposite? Like, maybe change someone's opinion for the house, like change the audience's opinion on a housewife for the better, or brought two housewives together that were maybe fighting, but now after them doing your podcast, they realize, oh, we need to be friends again?
It's changed people's opinion on housewives for the better. I've got the Candace is an example. I've got a lot of feedback that certain people liked Candace better after my interview. Well, because like in the beginning, she was talking about going in her MBA. Like, before we got into RHOP in the season and Monique in her having a physical altercation, I mean, Candace was like, I work, I'm gonna go get, I mean, it really was like almost a different person than you see on TV. Not a different person, but just we were focused on like school. And so people were like, wow. So that's an example. But even there's other examples I can't think of. I mean, I don't know if you watched Bling Empire. I think it's one of the best shows that's ever existed.
I have not watched that one.
It's like brilliant. I had Andrew Gray on, who was in an abusive relationship, still with this woman. They've worked it out. But people said like, oh, I see him more. I mean, then a lot of people said he's just as crazy as I thought, but certain people said he seems like a nicer guy than I thought. That happens. Have I ever had two people on that are in a feud that say, because I heard you on David's podcast and I was on yesterday and Let's Make Up? No. Has never happened. I've created feuds. I mean, the whole thing that happened, well, not on purpose, but the whole thing between Vicky Gunvalson and Lisa Rinna from like, remember that, like where she said like Lisa, blah, blah, blah at Andy's baby shower. And I was snubbed by the Beverly Hills and Lisa wouldn't have a job. That was created from my podcast.
Wow.
I didn't create it. I just asked Vicky a simple question and she went in, and the next thing you know, she was bashing the housewives and bashing Lisa. And then that's what was on Wendy and all over the world. And then there were pictures every other day of like Vicky versus Lisa. And I'm like, no, this is 100% created just because of my podcast. So I've created feuds, but I've yet to solve a feud. Maybe that should be a goal of mine in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, bringing people together.
Listen, I've tried. When Whitney was on my show, I said, say 3 nice things about Lisa Barlow. Let's do it right here. And I think she said 1.5.
Right.
She said, I mean, I called her out. She said A, B, and C, and I forgot what it was. And I'm like, Whitney, I'm like, C and half a B don't exactly sound like something nice.
Right.
I'm like, but we can move on. But I don't really think that counts. So, I mean, there are times that I try. I mean, I try to solve the world's problems.
Well, we're winding down, but I have a couple of more questions for you.
Yes.
Where do you want to see reality shows go? How do you want to see reality shows progress?
Either completely real or a version of being real that we're all in on, like The Hills. Like The Hills, the original Hills, where it's known that this isn't real.
Right.
But it's so good and these people are so good at their jobs. But short of that, I don't like this. We're in an in-between state. We're in an in-between state where everything is edited, and I don't buy 90% of the storylines that happen. So like, for instance, just because, and they could be true, but the point is we don't know,
Right.
like there's this whole, like, are you up on New Jersey Housewives?
I am. Yes.
So like, does Teresa hear this rumor about Jackie's husband and now feel she needs to bring it up? Or did someone say, bitch, you make $1.5 million. This is COVID. So we're already seeing, we like see the dailies for the OC and they suck because that filmed first. We see the dailies from Dallas and it's not great. Well, based on when Jersey's filming, you're like third in the mix. And so this COVID thing, it's not working. So this is what's going to happen. You're going to walk into that room and you are going to start this rumor and you're going to shut the fuck up because this is your salary and it's your show. And before people get bored with you, sweetie, and we're thinking, go start this rumor and we have a season. I'm not so sure that didn't happen. I don't know. Will we ever know for sure? Probably not.
Probably not. No.
But I don't believe things like that don't happen. And it's not picking on Bravo or Jersey. It's just the whole knowing how it's made. It's like those things happen. Now, listen, you can't predict, Jackie's reaction. And so like, you can't predict, but you start that domino and you light that match. Like, listen, I've even been at filmings and I've been on a lot of reality shows. So I'm not going to name any names, but I've been at filmings where producers will hold up a card.
Oh, wow.
Not good what she said. Like, it's almost like telling you to be angry.
Right.
And in confessionals, like I have speaking to all these people, like you go into a confessional to say one thing and they're like, really? Like you weren't mad. I mean, they I know that that's what a producer does. That is the job. I get it. But it's this in-between state. So either make it really real or let us know that this is a fictionalized version of reality and let us all be in on it and we'll still enjoy it. I don't like this in between.
Now, my thought on Teresa is my thought with that was the fact that now that they're getting rid of all of the OGs, Teresa's like, because she's an OG, so she's like, okay, I got to bring it. What is your feeling about them getting rid of like the OGs from the various franchises?
I'm okay with it. I mean, I feel like, I'm okay with it. I feel like if you're not bringing it and it's getting boring, then it's your time to go.
Like, would you be okay with like an OC? There's a rumor about the OC reboot. Are you okay with that?
I said before when I was on some podcast, I personally think the entire OC should be scrapped. I think every person should be let go. And I think they should cast, and this is not ageist at all. I personally like my housewives in their 50s. I don't really love this whole downward trend, because it's a chance. TV's so youth based. So it's great that there's these shows, but I think to make a good show, the OC should fire every single person and hire women that are in like their early 30s to mid 30s. And it should be like Laguna Beach, but like Housewives version. It's not going to be like, it's going to be a bunch of really thin, attractive, obnoxious. I mean, yes, it's not where the world is going now, but Bling Empire was about filthy rich Asians. I mean, that's what they say. That was based on that movie.
I did see Bling Empire. My friend Kevin's on Bling Empire.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay. So, so like Bling Empire. So, I mean, I think there's a way to have like a over the top, like just obnoxious show, but it's so entertaining and just takes us out of our daily, COVID. Because Bling Empire was so great. It was great. So I just think for the OC personally, if you want a good show, I think you should go that and let everybody go. They're trying to bring back a bunch of the old cast members, and I think that's the second best. But I personally think there's nobody salvageable on the OC. I'm kind of over them all. Nice people.
Yeah. What I liked about Bling Empire is they could they were bitchy to each other sometimes and they were mean to each other. But at the end of the day, you left the show still liking them.
Yeah.
Like you liked all the people.
Yeah.
And also it wasn't so, I think with the housewives sometimes they're tending sometimes to get a little more toxic.
Yeah.
You know, and Bling Empire was not toxic. It was like, okay, they can argue, they can fight, but at the end of the day, you still like them.
There's something I think about housewives. Because, you know, I mean, I've said this before, like I interview all of these Bachelor people, and what makes no sense to me is they've all slept together. They've actually, like, they should hate each other. They've all actually should. They've slept and they don't. They're like the nicest people. They don't throw mud. They're like, it's kind of like, yeah. So, I mean, that's what makes no sense to me. Like there's something about housewives. I don't get it, but they're more ready to fight and sling the mud than any other category. Because again, all these Bachelor people, I mean, come on, and they all have these pasts of going to bed together, and like, they're all like, oh, you had him on, he's great. It's like, really? You slept with this person and now you don't speak. Like, it's not, I don't know if it's because it's a show about finding love versus, I don't know, but there's something about housewives. It's a different category.
And one last question.
Yes.
If you had the power to go into Bravo and revamp it and improve it, what would you do?
That is such a good question. I love talking to, I mean, with the exception of maybe one show, I don't like the idea of like, well, I can't say that because I love The Hills. I guess I do like the idea of bringing old shows back. I was going to say I don't necessarily like the idea of bringing old shows back, but the more I think about it, I mean, I loved The Hills. And I mean, if there's certain OC Housewives back, I guess I would be thrilled with that. You know, I just think variety, like there needs to be a different formula because, like, to your point, Bling Empire was so over the top and yet we all loved it. Look at Selling Sunset. I don't know if you watch Selling Sunset.
Yes, I did.
That's brilliant. So like, there's a way to make a show interesting without it being such dirty drama. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And if you think back to the beginning of Bravo, they had shows based on, it was like a docuseries, Jonathan Anton, Blowout. He's a hairdresser. There was drama, but it was like legitimate business. Patty Stanger, Millionaire Matchmaker, Jeff Lewis flipping out. Like, the formula needs to be more like that. Even like Rachel Zoe, like there was a different formula in the beginning. And so maybe like drama, but just more diverse shows. We certainly do not need another Housewives city. I think that's the problem with the Housewives. People have fatigue because now it's on all the time. With Salt Lake being added, it's like, it's different, but it's the same. And yes, I'm here for it. I watch it all and I love it all and I love them all and I interview them all. I just think we need like a different type of show.
Right.
You know, like maybe more focused on like actual, because if you think about it, what do the Housewives do? That's the problem. Like there's no storyline. Like the storyline is the drama. That's how they get into it. Like flipping out, Jeff Lewis had a real business, which had drama, but it was like an actual business. Like same thing with $1 Million Listing. Like they actually show houses. I think there needs to be more shows about businesses and like, or people's lives that then involve drama versus like, let's just throw a bunch of friends together to get drunk and party. That's my advice.
Yeah. And it's kind of like VPR, Vanderpump Rules, because initially Vanderpump Rules was about the business and it was about the restaurant. And it was about them like all struggling actors and actresses. But then when it became more about them and they didn't work there anymore, that took the fun out of it. Right. So I agree with you about the businesses, you know?
Yeah, and then it's like, it's real stuff. Like I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this because I never loved it. I just grew up. I mean, like this past season or past 2 seasons of Below Deck, I'm like, I finally get why people love this show so much. Like, I'm late to the game, but like things are happening. Like, there's different charter guests. There's like, it's like things are happening at work that involve drama, but it's like an actual other things are happening besides just the drama. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It moves faster because you're actually doing something together.
And
I think that's what needs to happen.
Yeah. And also, I think with Below Deck too, they switch it up. So it's not everybody every season.
Right.
And I think that's part of the fun too, is it switches up, other than the captains, it switches up, and then the captains all kind of act a little differently because they're reacting to a whole new set of people. And so you're going to react to different people differently.
Totally. And I've interviewed every season. I interview all these Below Deck people. Somehow I interview a lot of them at the beginning of the season. It just works out that way. And then it's so interesting. Like, by the end of the season, I even say to them, I'm like, you will not be the same person when you come back here at the end of the season. And then they come back and it's like, they're just different because they've been through it with the media and Instagram haters. And, it's just like, I like that because every season when Below Deck starts, you're like, oh, like, I don't know if I want to get to know new people. And then you're like, how am I going to get to know new people? Like, I got so much going on. Like, I'm never going to. And then you do by the end of the season, like, these people and you're in it. It's like, I think that's part of it too. I do. I think you're right. It's fun. Like, you don't want to do it at first. Like, I don't want new people. Like, who's who? And those 2 girls look the same. And I don't get it. And which one's working inside? Like, you're all confused. But then eventually it takes on a life of its own. You're like, this was really fun. And even when they fire someone and bring in someone new, I think that helps move it along,
Yeah. Well, David, oh my God, I just looked at the clock. It didn't even feel that long. We've been going for like well over an hour.
Hopefully no one thinks I was too preachy or on my rants,
No, you were great. No, you were great. And you were welcome back.
I was going to say, I'll be one of your podcast friends. Follow me on Instagram. We can follow each other. And it's always good to have, I find it's a whole nother discussion we can talk about another time. Some of the reality TV podcasters are not the nicest people. So I think, sometimes you have other podcasts and you're like, I don't want to be your friend. So I think it's good to have podcast friends too.
Well, good. We're podcast friends now.
This is what we do. But, anyone that wants a 5-day-a-week interview show with reality people can check out my Behind the Velvet Rope, or on Instagram at Behind Velvet Rope. There's no the. It was too long. So at Behind Velvet Rope or Behind the Velvet Rope.
Awesome.
Fine. I'll come back anytime you want.
Yes, please do. Please do come back anytime.
I will.
And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep in touch.